I'm Trish the Dish. I have 15 years plus of roller skate gear experience. I'm a co-founder of Sin City Skates, and I've coached, played, and captained roller derby for my entire career, which I just retired, and now I'm an aggressive skate park skater. No brands are paying to be featured in my video, just have loyalty to brands based on their performance. Today we're going to go over skate maintenance, mainly cleaning bearings. First of all, bearings, you don't need to spend a lot on them. The important thing about bearings is that you keep them clean. The ABEC rating doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's a 3, a 5, a 7, a 9. What matters is that your bearings are clean. Some of the tools you'll need today to get to cleaning your bearings and rotating your wheels are skate tools or sockets. There are many different skate tools on the market, obviously. Any of them will usually work. The other thing you can do is if you've got a socket set at home, you can just use those. 1/2-inch socket or 13mm socket to do your axles, 14mm or 9/16 socket to do your truck action nuts. I use a drill because I work on these things all day long. And if you are going to use a drill, make sure that your drill has a clutch on it so that you can adjust the amount of torque that you're putting on these bearings. Also, you might need a screwdriver to get your bearings out, or if you've got a bench press or a bearing puller, that will also do the job. But all you really need is a screwdriver. Don't use your axles. I'll explain that later. And if you're adjusting any toe stop stuff, you might need a crescent wrench, a screwdriver, or an Allen key, depending on what plates you have on your skates. The other things you'll need is some kind of cleaner. Today I'm going to use some used Monkey Lube, but you can use orange cleaner, you can from Home Depot or wherever, you can use bearing cleaner, you can use Monkey Lube, and then you'll also need speed cream like Cube Lube, Quick Lube, Bone Speed Cream. A high-speed oil is what you're looking for. Please don't use 3-in-1 oil or WD-40. And then you'll need a container to put your bearings in. Today I'm just going to use a little plastic bowl. You can use a glass jar. So the microfiber towel that we're going to use today is so that you don't get little bits of fabric or paper into your bearings. So no paper towels, no bathroom washcloths, nothing where the fibers can come out of the towel. So to get started today, we're just going to get both skates in here, and we're going to remove all of the wheels and go from there. So removing your axle nuts. Found a bad one. So because I can spin this nut with my fingers, I know I need to replace this nut. So when I take it off, it's going in the trash. So this bad axle nut, this is a perfect example of ways to maintenance our skates and find problems before they happen to us out on the road. So because I could remove this axle nut with my finger, I could spin it. That means that the nylon race inside of here is all worn out. Here's one that's maybe got a slightly better nylon race, but still used. And when that little black ring, or yours might be clear, who knows, when that wears out, the nut is no good anymore and you might lose a wheel. So we're gonna replace that when we put our skates back together today. If you don't have a bench press or a Bones bearing puller or something like that, you can use a screwdriver. A lot of your skateboarding friends might suggest just use your axle. Well, if you use your axle to pop these bearings out, you're going to destroy the threads on your axle, and then you're going to be replacing your trucks. So my suggestion instead is use a screwdriver. You simply stick a screwdriver in here, give it a little bit of pop around the edges, and it pops out for you. Okay. Now we are going to put our orange cleaner or bearing cleaner or Monkey Lube, whatever we've got, into a bowl or a jar. And then we're going to put our bearings in there. So just throw them on in there. Now, the correct way to clean a bearing, if you ask Roller Bones, is to take out the little tiny ring that holds this shield in, remove the shield, and then take a toothbrush and individually clean the inside of the bearing after removing all the seals and rings and everything. I'll just tell you that if I did that, I would have no bearings left because I would lose half the parts and never be able to get them back together. So once you put them in the cleaner, you're going to agitate and shake them around. You're going to notice that the cleaner is going to get darker and darker as those bearings start to get cleaner inside. Now, I'm using orange cleaner or bearing cleaner or monkey lube because it doesn't harm your bearings. So if you're using acetone or gasoline or paint thinner, I've heard some different people suggesting different things out there, and I would just stay away from all of those because acetone, harsh chemicals, they hurt the little plastic parts inside your bearings. There's races, there's different things in there. They dry them out real quick and can damage them in the long run. So yes, they will clean your bearings. Your bearings will be clean when you're done with that, but not really great for long-term cleaning options. Once we put them in here, we can let these sit for 10 minutes. We can let these sit overnight. If you don't have time to do the whole thing in one session, that's totally fine. The important thing is that they get agitated every once in a while and that they're submerged in the fluid so that all that dirt and grime can come out of there. So while we're waiting for our bearings to agitate and to soak, we are going to look over the rest of our skate and make sure we don't have any potential problems ahead of us. So we'll just start up with the toe stop or the plug, whatever you've got in there. First, I'm just going to check and make sure it's tight. There's no movement there. If it's loose, now's a good time to tighten it. Make sure there's no metal showing. If there is, your toe stop's wearing out. You need to either rotate your toe stop or switch your skates and switch their toe stops. We all use one foot more than the other, so that's an easy way to get a little bit more life out of your toe stop. You're also going to have a look at these pivot cups. And the pivot cup is where your truck actually meets your plate. And these pivot cups, they might be rubber, they might be plastic, but there's two. There's one at each pivot point in the truck. And you just want to make sure that they're not ripped, torn, missing. Make sure they're not oblonged or worn out. Also going to look at your cushions or your bushings. Those are the soft parts inside your truck. There's usually 2 per truck. Some people have single action, so there'd only be 1. But your bushings here could be many different colors, and those actually give your skate rebound. So they are what allow you to turn. And when you are looking at your frame here, those trucks should be kind of level. One shouldn't be off leaning to the side or something like that where it's not returning to its center spot, okay? If you have any bulges or rips or tears in any of those, now's a good time to replace them. Don't worry about this block in the middle. That's for the skate park. Your skate might not have that on there, or it might have a jump bar instead. That varies. And then we're also going to have a look at the mounting hardware. So to make sure your plate is actually mounted and you're not missing nuts here, because that could cause a big problem if you just lose your plate. Your plate rips away from your boot. So just make sure all these nuts are nice and tight as well. None of them are moving or need to be adjusted. You can check your truck nuts, your action nuts as well. Your fingers shouldn't be able to adjust those either. And now's a good time to just make sure nothing's rattling around. Your toe stop hardware isn't rattling around. Your trucks aren't rattling around. Everything is nice and tight. Now that we've looked over our skates, we're going to get back to our bearings and see if they're clean yet. It's probably been about 10 or 15 minutes since I put these into the cleaner. So let's see how we do. We're just going to reach in and grab a bearing. We're going to pull it out. We're going to hold the inside ring and give it a spin. It should sound nice and quiet. If there's crunching or grinding going on, your bearings aren't clean yet. They need to go back into the solution and soak a little bit longer. But they should spin freely and should not have crunching or grinding. Probably fast forward this too. Be sure that when you are using lube, you're only using one little drop. And the reason why is because if you fill this thing up with oil, if you put too much oil in there, it's just going to attract more dirt to your bearings. It's a sticky substance. So one little drop of oil gives that bearing as much lube as it needs to do its job. Again, no WD-40, no 3-in-1 oil. That's gunky. It will gunk up your bearings and they won't spin freely. Once we've got all of them lubed up, then we're ready to put them back into our wheels. So at this point, it shouldn't matter where your bearings go in what wheel. It's just putting them in there. So with most wheels, you could do this with your finger if you wanted to, by pressing it in just like that. Now again, my old hands, if I did that all day long, I wouldn't have any thumbs left. So I am going to use my bearing press. So just be sure that when you are putting your bearings in, you're putting the shield side out. You don't want the open side facing out, then you're just going to get it full of dirt. So if you've got shields on both sides of your bearings, it doesn't matter. But if you've only got shields on one side, make sure that shield is facing out on both sides of your wheel. Oops. So I don't know if you can see this in the video, but we have a couple of wheels here that are pretty different sizes. And sometimes you can tell when you actually put them up side by side like this. So what I'm going to try and do, because this one is coned more a little bit, I'm going to put that one, and maybe slightly smaller, I'm going to put that one in the back and put the bigger wheels in the front. So I'm going to separate out my small looking wheels versus my bigger looking wheels. So when we go to put them back on, we're going to put the smaller wheels in the back and the bigger wheels in the front. So big wheel here, small wheel here. Now, when you're putting your nuts on, there's a couple of things you want to be careful about. You need to be careful when tightening your nuts, because if you come down on your nut at an angle like this, you can dent the shields in your bearings, and that will keep your bearing from spinning at all. If you look at your bearings and it's all dented in there, then you might just want to replace your bearings because they'll never spin right again. So got a new nut. So that's the last one we're putting on. Now, the adjustment of the wheels. So you want your wheels to be, well, your nuts actually, to be as tight as they can possibly be without them restricting movement. What I mean by that is, right now, this nut is too tight. The wheel won't spin. So I'm going to carefully, not putting my tool at an angle, back this nut off a little bit until it spins freely. Now, too loose would look something like this, where your nut is so loose that it's allowing your wheel to shift. See that? From side to side. That's too loose. So we're going to carefully tighten that back up, making sure we're staying straight on top of the nut. And then it should spin freely without any movement being restricted. Also without it being too loose that it shakes on the axle. And now you have a nice clean sound when your bearings are spinning. I'm excited to do more videos, and I'm excited to cover the topics that you want to hear about. So I was considering maybe like high boots versus low boots, what the advantage and disadvantages are, pads, helmets, necessity versus comfort versus good protection, wheels, types, shapes, sizes, what the different wheel types are for different disciplines of roller skating and how to use them and where to use them. mounting plates and installing grind blocks. Maybe you guys would want to hear about that. Making your own custom shoe skates out of your favorite Vans or Doc Martens or something like that. So we're also going to maybe do a bushing segment, why to use a soft bushing versus a hard bushing, how tight should my trucks be, all that kind of stuff. So if there's something that you want me to cover, tell us about it in the comments, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.